Hello everyone. Today I will be featuring a rather interesting upcoming new premium, and that is the Tier 8 USS Kidd, a destroyer, and a US destroyer, which is a nice change considering the only thing we really have until now is the Sims. And the USS Kidd has actually been very enjoyable to play. I have enjoyed this ship a lot. It's been very fun, and I'm not quite certain about where it rates on the power scale. It might be a tad too powerful, but honestly I don't think it's really that bad. It's just a very comfortable ship to play. The question is if it's too comfortable, which can be debated. Now, the basic game style is very much what you would expect from a USDD. I push into a cap, I leave a smoke behind me for my radar cruisers and my division mates that pushing in, and I'm pushing into both cap and to scout for them, and to see, of course, if there's any enemy DDs pushing in. This is very basic Benson/Fletcher gameplay, and this, of course, is a Fletcher hull. You have exactly the DPM that a Benson has with five turrets, the same reload and so forth, so nothing different in that. This is everything that a Benson could do in a nutshell. But there are some differences. Namely, you notice, well, let's kill this guy first, and I take some incoming damage. Of course, they focus fire me, just like they do to any DD. And here, of course, comes the main difference. You have access to a heal, and this is actually quite a game changer. The heal doesn't really heal that much. The stock heal, with just running the healing flag without survivability expert, heals for about 100 health per second, and it lasts 28 seconds. So this means you're actually only healing for 2.8k. But with Superintendent and a premium consumable, you get 4 of these, so that adds up to what, 5.6, 11.2k additional potential health. If you run Survivability Expert with the more tanky build, you can have a potential health of over 30k health. In this case, with just running without Survivability Expert, you have a potential health of about 26-27k, which is already quite impressive. And this heal gives you a lot more freedom. It gives you this access to be able to play much more aggressively than you normally would. And because if you eat an unfortunate torp, you eat an unfortunate volley like some AP pen and so forth, that's pretty much game over, or your effectiveness gets greatly crippled in any other DD. But because you have access to this heal, you can kind of take these hits, and you're more willing to go in and play this much more risky gameplay style. And I actually love that. I love that opportunity because it's so much more enjoyable. The amazing heal is, however, not given for free. In order to get access to this amazing heal and some of the other features of this ship, you have to do some trade-offs. And the biggest trade-off here is that you lose a complete torpedo launcher. You only have 1 torpedo launcher. That means 5 torpedoes, and these are not Fletcher torpedoes, even though it's a Fletcher hull. These are Benson torpedoes. So these torps have a 122-second reload, which means 2 minutes of reloading to launch 5 torps, and these 5 torps are very slow, 55 knots. They deal 16.6k damage, which is pretty okay, but at 55 knots and 9.2k range, these are very much an emergency and a special case kind of tool. You do the majority of your work, the majority of your damage in this ship is absolutely done with your guns, which is why the natural comparison that I draw is, of course, to the Sims, because this is very much a USDD gunboat. I can't even call this a hybrid in the same sense that Benson is, because the Benson also focuses heavily on torpedoing, but on the Kidd it's almost entirely gun focused. You want to just be ducka-ducking all the time, all over the place, and in order to be able to do that, in order to be able to gunboat as much as you have to do to compensate for the loss of this torpedo damage, I think that the heal is actually quite necessary to keep you alive, because you can't really play at the same ranges as Russian DDs. You don't have the speed to play at the same. You don't have the speed to dodge as well either. So you have to stay closer than Russian DDs, and you're not as fast as Russian DDs. So in order to compensate, you get the heal instead. And I think this is a pretty good trade-off. And I think this is a pretty fun way of playing this ship. I've been enjoying this gameplay a lot. It's a lot of dakka dakka, it's a lot of action. Most of the time I'm giving my smokes to my teammates because I'm staying on the move so much. Of course you can smoke up and shoot yourself, that happens quite often as well. It's a very active style and it's fun to play. Now, it does draw some additional downsides as well. The rudder shift loses quite a bit out on the Benson. The Benson has a 2.7 second rudder shift, which is god tier. This one has a 3.9. The Benson also has a 360-degree turn radius of, what was it? Let me check so I'm talking out of my ass. 570 meter turning circle on the Benson, whereas of course this Kidd has a 620 meter. So you lose out a bit on turn radius, you lose out a bit on rudder shift, but it doesn't cripple it. It still handles great, it still handles like a USDD, but it's a bit clumsier. So there are of course downsides. But one thing that I didn't really mention yet in comparing this is something that is a bit more niche, but also adds a great deal of freedom to this ship, and that is of course the strength of the anti-air. The anti-air on this ship is amazing. Not only do you of course have access to the defensive AA, which is fantastic, but you also have access to not just Fletcher anti-air, but slightly stronger AA than what the Fletcher has. This combined of course with defensive AA means that you become quite an anti-air monster. Now, I already posted an AA test from the Kidd on my channel. I can link it below in the comments so you can see just how strong the AA is if you spec for it. But this combination of AA, great maneuverability, the speed of the Benson with the speed flank, which is of course 39.9 knots, and the overall maneuverability, the small size, means that you are able to escape a lot of these really nasty situations that other DDs might struggle with. Here, for example, we have a Minotaur, we have Grosse Corfos, we have Montana, and the carrier is trying to perma-spot me with his planes. And these are the kind of situations where the carrier doesn't really want to be perma-spotting you, but he's trying to get you killed. And you can punish him extremely heavily with this strong AA. And this combination, of course, especially since they added these huge water spouts from big shells, meaning your small ship is even harder to see, let alone hit, means that these situations that might kill other DDs, you don't have too many issues with them. You're able to dodge and weave your way out of this potentially lethal situation. You shoot down any planes that are spotting you, and you're able to heal up a lot of the damage you would have normally taken. So you have this map freedom that not many other DDs can boast, and it's extremely enjoyable. You spotter plane, fighter plane spots you, you shoot them down, other DD comes and fights you, you can take them on, you get great concealment. You lack torpedo, sure, but you have a lot of compensation for it, and it's a different way of playing the DD, but it's a very enjoyable way of playing the DD, and overall I've greatly enjoyed the ship. I think it's been a ton of fun, and the sheer freedom that you have in it is extremely refreshing. The end result that you get out of this is that you end up with this roaming, hard to spot, quite hard to kill destroyer that doesn't actually pose that much of a torpedo threat, but it's a short-range gunboat specialist is pretty much what I would call it. I would say the Kidd is extremely good, an extremely good team player, like an extremely well suited for supporting the team and helping, and I wouldn't be surprised at all to see the ship show up in competitive either, because it's just got so many good things for competitive. The great concealment, the US smokes, the heal, gives it additional survivability in case you're being focused down, or like you get torp, you eat an unfortunate torp, you eat an additional AP. And the torpedoes, well, I mean, mostly I've been using them defensively. Someone tries to YOLO my smoke, I charge out and I take them on face first and I torp them in return. So the torpedoes are obviously the weak point, but I think all the other strengths it has are more than enough to compensate for this one weakness, and it makes for a surprisingly unique playstyle and surprisingly fun to play. So who would I recommend this destroyer to? Well, if you enjoyed the Sims, if you enjoyed the Akizuki, you're probably going to enjoy this one. It's like a combination of both of them. It takes the AA and some of the additional survivability of the Akizuki, and it takes some of the nimbleness, the smokes and such from the Sims. In a straight up fight, I'd say the Akizuki can probably defeat the Kidd, because the Akizuki has so much better health pool and of course much better DPM, especially if you're running IFHE. But the Akizuki loses significantly, of course, in maneuverability, because it's clumsy. It does 33 knots. This one does 39.9 with the speed flag. This one is significantly more nimble. It's smaller. It's like a US version of the Akizuki that is nimbler, faster, smaller, better smokes. I would say better anti-air as well. Not while defensive AA isn't active. Well, actually, it might even have better when it's not active, but when defensive AA is active, this thing absolutely shreds planes as well. So I am expecting to see the Akizuki get replaced, perhaps not in all maps, but in many situations. In fact, I might see, in competitive that is, I might even see teams that wouldn't perhaps run an Akizuki on some maps because they don't like playing the Akizuki. They might instead take a Kidd. So it might not straight up replace the Akizuki, but I think it will compete with the Benson very heavily. Because yes, you lose 50% torpedo power, but in return you gain a slight health boost, the heal, and the excellent anti-air, which are all of course great strengths for T8 competitive. So overall, is this ship overpowered? I don't really know. It's very hard to determine, because, for example, it doesn't really shift any balances. You still wreck IG and DDs, but so does the Benson. You still lose to Kiev Akizuki and so forth in a straight-up gunfight, but so does the Benson. And you're not as good as a torpedo boat as something like a Kagero, but yeah, that's also nothing new. It's just a more specialized team play role than the Benson, I would say, and that doesn't mean it's bad. If it's fun, I've been loving this ship. This ship has been very enjoyable to play. In fact, Flambaz, who's also a very experienced DD player, has also said that he loves playing this thing. He thinks it's amazing fun, and I'm not surprised. I'd say that anyone who loves playing gunboats is gonna enjoy the freedom that the Kidd offers them. The concealment, the maneuverability, the heal, the AA. It means that you have so much freedom to move around the map, and it's very refreshing. Anyway, I can show you some of the builds I've been running on this ship so far, since I don't know if the ship is going to change. I mean, it's still a work in progress, it might still change, but as of now I can show you my, maybe, temporary builds that I am currently running. Alright, let me just start off with the modules, of course. Consumable wise, run premium, everything you can afford. Highly recommend at least a heal so you get an additional consumable. And of course smoke repair and defensive AA in that order. Upgrade wise, turret and torpedo survivability, followed by AA range. It's so fantastic. I run this regardless on pretty much all my DDs that can slot defensive AA, but it's especially good on the Kidd, of course. And the special module that increases defensive AA duration. This is of course amazingly good on the Kidd. And finally, I run propulsion mod. Now, the debate could be made, the argument could be made that you could run rudder shift, because as I said, 3.9 second rudder shift as opposed to Benson's 2.7. So it's not as straightforward to run acceleration as it is on the Benson, but personally I still prefer it because you do so much gunboating, so much stopping and accelerating in smokes and so forth, that I do still prefer it. But the argument could be made that steering gears would also be excellent. And finally, of course, concealment expert. Now, captain perks wise, this is the overall jack of all trades, overall balanced build that I have preferred the most. And that is, of course, preventive maintenance, last stand, superintendent, and concealment expert. Now, this is the pretty normal USDD build that any USDD would feel just at home with. The difference is, though, after this we go AFT and BFT. AFT, of course, the AA range, the panic radius, and just the overall power of AA. And finally, BFT, 10% better reload, and another 20% to the AA. This combination makes your AA extremely potent, and not just allows you to shoot down carrier planes, but also allows you to snipe any spotter and fighter planes that are around, and it greatly denies the enemy vision, and overall greatly denies vision of you especially. And finally, of course, AR, which is pretty much recommended on every single ship. I would say this is probably one of the most overpowered perks in the game right now, simply because it's must-have on every single ship. And if a perk is must-have on every single ship, I would make the argument that it's probably a bit overpowered. Anyway, This is the overall jack of all trades build that I think is so far the best. Before this though, I ran, instead of BFT, I ran Survivability Expert, which is also great. It boosts your health to almost 20k, and it increases the amount you heal as well, because heal is percentage based, and it gives you a lot of extra survivability. Personally, I didn't think I needed it, because with the heal I thought I was able to do just fine, and I wanted the additional damage instead. But if you have issues surviving, or you just want the extra tankiness, there's no reason not to run it. In fact, for competitive, I could easily see people running survivability instead of BFT, because it gives you so much extra survivability. And finally, of course, if you want to go to full AA build, I actually have, posted a stream highlight of me testing this full AA build against triple Taihos, and I ended up killing all 3 Taihos, so it's very, very strong. And in that case, you give up Superintendent and you give up AR, and you spec manual AA as well. And with the help of BFT, AFT and manual AA, you of course become an absolute plane shredder. But this kind of build is something I would only recommend if you queue up with a carrier as well, because speccing that many points into anti-air is very, very risky unless you're queuing up with a carrier, because there's a high chance that pretty much half your captain build is going to end up being useless. So that's not a build I can recommend for everyday usage. This build that I'm running right here though, that's something I've been having great success in and a lot of fun with. Overall though, I might mention the flags. I do actually run the healing flag, because if you have a heal, this is always great. 20% extra health, why not? It's fantastic. And then it's just basic DD flags, detonation, speed. In this case, AA, which is something you would also run on the Akizuki. So very similar in that sense. Overall though, I think the Kidd is a pretty damn fun DD. I'm still on the fence about just how strong it is. It might be a bit too strong, but I won't go out of my way and call it, oh my god, it's overpowered, because it still loses to the same things that counter the Benson, and it doesn't really have that much offensive strength besides really the guns. I mean, you have your 5 torpedoes, that do 55 knots. And the Akizuki is straight up a better torpedo boat because of this, because the Akizuki has a 111 second, which is a faster torp reload. It has 10 km torps, they do 67 knots instead of 55. They hit for almost 21k instead of 16.6, and it has torpedo reload booster as well. So it straight up loses to the Akizuki in a torpedo boat fight, and no one will ever claim that the Akizuki is a good torpedo boat. So you're certainly making trade-offs. You're not gaining health and AA at the cost of nothing. No, you're making a significant trade-off, and that's exactly the type of premium I kind of like. You trade something and you get something else in return. You specialize in a certain field, and I think this is a great idea. And overall, the Kidd so far gets my recommendation. You like the Sims, you like the Akizuki, you're probably going to love the Kidd. Anyway, that was all for me. I hope you guys enjoyed it.